With that, I think we've actually got everybody checked in, and so now I'm going to recognize Town Clerk Michelle Hill for the reading of the warrant. And we need do you have a microphone, Michelle?
Special Town Meeting Tuesday, March 19, 2019, 6:30 p.m. at the Southwick Regional School, 93 Feeding Hills Road in the Gymnasium. To either of the constables of the Town of Southwick in the County of Hampden. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet and assemble at the Southwick Regional School Gymnasium on Tuesday, March 19, 2019 at 6:30 there and there, then and there for the special town meeting and to act on the following articles.
Yes. I move that we dispense with reading.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we dispense with reading of the warrant in its entirety and act on the articles individually.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion made and seconded to dispense with the reading of the town meeting warrant in its entirety. At this point, we'll read each of the articles as they come up for action. All in favor of dispensing with the reading at this time, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. That's carried by a majority.
Given under our hands at said Southwick this first day of March, the year of our Lord 2019, signed by the Selectmen Joseph J. D.D. Chairman, Russell S. Fox, Vice Chairman, Doug Moblin, Clerk. Pursuant to the within warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the Town of Southwick by posting up attested copies of the same 3 public places in said town at least 14 days before the date thereof as within directed, signed by the Constable Kelly Magny, myself, Town Clerk Michelle Hill. Posted at the Town Hall, Post Office, and the Library.
Great, thank you, Michelle. With that, we're going to proceed to Article 1, titled North Pond Project Additional Funding. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $500,000 from the Community Preservation General Unreserved Fund for the purchase of approximately 61.63 acres, more or less, being a portion of land comprised of 2 parcels more fully described in 2 deeds recorded in the Hampden County Registry of Deeds in Book 20621, page 446. I'm going to dispense with all of the details there. Owned by South Long Yard Holding Company, Inc., which sum is in addition to the $1 million previously appropriated by the town pursuant to Article 17 of the 2017 Annual Town Meeting as amended. Said appropriation and transfer to be subject to the same conditions contained in said Article 17 and to take any other action relative thereto. That's requested by the Community Preservation Committee. Is there a Finance Committee recommendation?
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $500,000 from the Community Preservation General Unreserved Fund for the purchase of approximately 61.63 acres, more or less, being a portion of land comprised of 2 parcels of the property more fully described in 2 deeds recorded in the Hampden County Registry of Deeds, books 20621, page 446. Dispense with the rest of that. Owned by South Long Yard Holding Company, which sum is in addition to the $1 million previously appropriated by the town pursuant to Article 17 of the 2017 annual meeting as amended. Said appropriation and transfer to be subject to the same conditions contained in said Article 17.
So the Finance Committee recommendation constitutes a motion made and seconded. So the article is now on the town meeting floor for purposes of debate and discussion. And I'm going to recognize Michelle Pratt to do a 10-minute presentation. Then we've got a couple of speakers who are going to follow her. And then we'll open it up for the entire group here. But Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's great to see such a fantastic turnout. I know this is a topic that has been greatly debated on social media, so I'm going to try to give you the facts as succinctly and clearly as possible. These facts have all been checked with multiple parties. And to begin with, this piece of property that we have sitting here in our town is now privately owned. We don't have access to it, and it could easily be sold to developers and be covered with homes, and there'll be an impact to that. We have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to preserve this property, and this is a property that will be preserved forever, now for us, for our use, and throughout the future. It is a 62-acre parcel of land. It could be developed into over a dozen new homes, and I know that's a debated topic too, how many homes could be in there, but it has been looked at by civil engineers and by planners, and we have the facts to back up that there could easily be a couple dozen homes that would go in there. These homes would definitely be on septic systems. They would not be on town sewer. Septic systems leach into the ground. You can see how this property is nestled in between Connecticut Wildlife Management, between our Southwick Wildlife Management, and this portion of town, of property up there has been recently purchased by the state as well to be preserved. So the remaining parcel, you can see, wraps around North Pond, and that what makes it so special. There is over 2,500 along with this property, and it's pristine. If you haven't been over there, you'll get a chance to see a beautiful drone video showing exactly what that property looks like when Franklin Land comes up to do their presentation. This shows the more conservative development model that could possibly be put into place, although as we'll hear in a moment, as I said, up to over 30 houses that could be there, all with private septic systems, driveways, and loss of public access. It's a very important habitat for animals and birds. Again, that's Franklin Land's department. They can explain that a little bit better. And this is a picture of some of those grasslands that are up and behind it. It's a really beautiful property. Preserving this land would make it open to the public for recreational purposes like hiking, bird watching, fishing, picnicking, and enjoyment in the future. And the key word here, folks, it's forever. There's been a great deal of support behind this project. We've had support from the Mass Department of Fish and Game. The town of Southwick has already dedicated funds to this project, and from our Franklin Land Trust. We've had a number of citizens who've made quite generous contributions, along with other businesses and foundations and grants. This land does sit over an aquifer. I know that was hotly debated on Facebook. This is the DEP map to prove it. You can see where the lake is, and you can see where the Zone 2 protection land is. It is over our aquifer. This is where we get our drinking water, and neighborhood communities also get drinking water from. And yes, there are homes built around that already. There's no way to avoid that, but putting more homes on it is only going to put extra strain on that very important natural resource. So the character of Congamon Lakes and North Pond will be changed forever if this land is developed. And again, how you can help, you can vote yes on both of these articles tonight, and it'll be explained more what the articles are specifically. This project is very important to mention. I'm so proud of this town. I'm so proud to live here. It's such an awesome community. We've already raised $3.3 million towards this project. You know that there's a little less than 10,000 of us? $3.3 million. That is really significant. Franklin Land has been very instrumental in getting that to happen, as well as the select board. Together, we can do great things. Unfortunately, though, the time is up. We do have to make these decisions now. We do need to make a commitment to getting these funds together. Warrant article number 1, and I'm sorry there was a typo on the information that you received tonight. It's 500,000. There's a little typo in there. But this is tax money that has already been paid by you. This has come out of your taxes, and it goes into our CPC funding. And the CPC, as mentioned by Moderator Putnam, and that has the Finance Committee support for us to receive this $500,000 towards the project. And it fits into our open space and recreation plan perfectly, I'll talk about. And it is independent of Article 2. The two are not connected. Community Preservation Commission, again, you put your tax money into this. You pay a 3% surcharge after the first $100,000 of your taxes. This is not 3% of your taxes. After the first $100,000 valuation of your property, you have your amount of taxes on the remainder of your property, and then it's a 3% surcharge on that. So I want to be really clear about that. This is what it boils down to. This graphic explains to you. A $100,000 property owner does not pay anything into the CPC. If you own a $300,000 property, you pay a little over $100 into it. If you're fortunate enough to own a $500,000 property, you're paying a little over $200. That money is very, very important to our town because it comes into play for historical preservation, for affordable housing, for open space preservation, and for park and rec. These are things that make Southwick Southwick. You want to live in a rural town? This committee is critically important to us being able to preserve the rural integrity of this town. If you've heard me speak before, you know that I'm very displeased with the makeup of our Community Preservation Commission, which we'll absolutely not get into tonight. Will be addressed in the future. But the important part is we are having this $500,000 available to us. According to our Southwick Open Space and Recreation Plan, if you look at the main goals of this, you can see how this North Pond project fits absolutely perfectly into this plan. It talks about things like maintaining the ecological integrity of the aquatic ecosystems, protecting the quality of our surface and groundwater and drinking supplies. Number one objective under that is improving the water quality of the Congamon Lakes by reducing pollution. Can't get any more perfect than the North Pond project for doing that. Goal number 2 is firmly protecting open space and ensuring conservation areas are managed appropriately. It's going to promote habitat integrity and resiliency, which in this ever-changing world that we live in, increasing population and impact on our environment, that's critical. Goal number 3, to preserve working farms and forests in support of an agricultural way of life in Southwick. And goal number 4, improving and expanding the recreational and environmental education opportunities for people of all ages, preserving Southwick's scenic, cultural, and historic character. Such rich historic information about the critical nature of the Congamon Lakes to this town. If you don't know about it, you should learn about it because it's pretty fascinating. And right when you drive into Southwick, what does it say on our sign? Southwick, a recreational community. The North Pond project is perfect to fit into that. Warrant article number 2 is going to ask, unfortunately, for the town to have to bond the remaining balance if Article 1 passes. This is going to be $1.2 million if you pass Article 1. So I'm going to talk about what that means also, and I want everybody to listen very carefully. There's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there, and I have been provided by our Finance Committee tonight with the exact numbers. I know most of you are really, really eager to hear. Bonding, again, for everybody, that means borrowing, okay? Yes, there are tax implications. We have never said that there weren't. I'll explain what they are. But I'm also going to explain the fact that if this property is developed, your taxes will be also increased. So the bonding example that we did have before I got here tonight is from 2009 when the DPW bonded for $1.4 million. But since I have hot off the press information from the Finance Committee, I can tell you in looking at the 20-year bonds with a level debt system that the tax implication would be 8 cents per thousand. 8 cents per thousand. I'm not a mathematician, so I did use my calculator, so I can tell you, if you own a $150,000 home, property value-wise, you pay $12 extra a year. If you own a $350,000 property, we're talking about $28 a year. A $500,000 property, $40 a year. This is how your taxes would be impacted if you vote yes to bond to the town. Very important pieces of information. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what that implication would be.
About a minute, Michelle.
Thank you. Shoot, that's fast. Okay, if this property is developed, this graphic shows that Increasing development does not bring in more tax money, folks. It brings it in, but you're putting it out faster than you get it in. This shows you the average, $1.18 for every dollar brought in revenue. So if they build houses on that property, you guys are going to pay for it. They have children, it's over $15,000 a year to educate a child in our school system, which I think is totally worth it. But it's a lot of money, and you're going to pay for it, not them. So counting the impact of the development is an excellent article that Marcus Phelps has written, which explains the loss that we could have in developing that. And I won't get into the arguments too much against, we don't really have time, but I want to let you know, if you vote for this tonight, and you don't want to pay for your taxes, we're going to have an annual town meeting in May, and I'm very happy to let you know we just found out that the state will actually delay pulling their funding back from us if we don't make the commitment by the end of the month. We actually will be able to do it in May. So if you vote yes to bond tonight, you don't want to pay the extra 8 cents per thousand, you'll get another chance to ask your Community Preservation Commission to reconvene and reconsider bonding through them. Thank you very much.
So I'm now going to recognize Tracy Hartshorn, I think I've got the right name, for 2 minutes. And I understand that Tracy is a science teacher here at the high school, and she'd like to share with us.
Hello, thank you for letting me be here today. Yes, I'm a science teacher here at Southwick Regional School. I've been here since 2011. I noticed some former students in the audience, so that's great to see you. I think it's very important for you folks to recognize that the curriculum that science teachers, not just in high school, but middle school as well as elementary school, must have to cover certain science standards. And with this property, the teachers in our community can actually utilize this property so that we could investigate the natural world. As you can see here with the elementary life science, the students at pre-K have to be in their local environment to observe plants and animals. If you take a look at kindergarten, you have to recognize that things change over time. North Pond would be a perfect place to do that. It's not very far to get down to North Pond from elementary school. I also talked about here some middle school tasks they have to do. Notice I highlighted things in red here that they have to look at the environment. They have to look at plants and animals in their local environment. Again, middle school, not too far away. Junior high, middle, and junior high, we're still looking at aspects of the environment and the changing environment around us. This is something that students and you folks all are well aware that if we put development on North Pond, we're going to see extreme changes to North Pond and the water quality at the other ponds as well. The high school is even more detailed when we start looking at what we have to do there. We have to look at biodiversity in the local environment. We also have to look at analyzing data from changing environments from past to present. And if we have North Pond, we'll be able to monitor it from year to year, especially with the environmental classes that we have here. So I hope that you will vote to conserve North Pond, so that our students will be able to, in this community, investigate their natural environment, right? They'll be able to cherish the environment that they're going to hopefully stay here in Southwick and live in, and they'll be able to enjoy it for generations to come. Thank you very much.
And rounding out the presentation, we have representatives of the Franklin Land Trust, and I believe they're... Okay, so we'll let Deb Harris go first, and again, 2 minutes, and then we will wrap up the formal presentation with the Franklin.
Thank you all. It's so great to see everybody here. I am the current president of Citizens Restoring Pond. We have many members, and those members
a little closer to your mouth, Deb. You're soft spoken.
That's not usually the problem. But anyway, so Citizens Restoring Pond was created to help keep the lakes clean and healthy. So as you can see, we want to continue to do that, and that any water from North Pond flows to the Middle Pond, to South Pond, through the canal, the river, to the ocean. So anything that happens in North Pond will have a continuing effect throughout all of our water flow. houses, as Michelle mentioned, do have septic systems. We will have over there because there are no plans for the town to bring over the sewer system. The town's done a wonderful job with as many sewer systems as they've done for us. But with septic, there's always the possibility for more phosphorus leaks. And the phosphorus often, then the lawn fertilizers and the salts from roads, et cetera, that would be built over there, they all can help with a bloom. And that bloom, the algae blooms can be extraordinarily dangerous. If the parts per million get high enough, they can close the lake down for the whole year. And that is state law. So some of those algae blooms can be extremely dangerous, not only to people and to wildlife, but also our lovely dogs and cats. Anyway, that is what I have to say. And again, we thank you, and Citizens Restoring Congamon thanks you.
And now, Michelle, I'll let you introduce from Franklin Land Trust, and my understanding is that they also have a short video which will play in the background with no sound while it's Rich makes their presentation. Then from here, we will go to the Finance Committee, Select Board, and then we'll open it up. So come on forward, Rich.
Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I'm Rich Hubbard, the Executive Director of the Franklin Land Trust. Sorry. June of 2016, we were invited to come down and meet with some folks from the town, select board members, Conservation Commission folks, and there's some state folks who are there too, to discuss what was described at the time as being the most important land conservation project that was still available to be done in the town of Southwick. And it was a tall order for us. We rolled up our sleeves and we drove in, and here we are tonight, 3 years later, and tonight we'll likely decide where this project is going to go. One of the things that seems to be continuing to pop up in this conversation is the question of value. It's $5 million purchase price. It's a lot of money. And a lot of people are questioning whether the property is even really worth that. And I just thought I would address that issue because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. We, in February of 2016, hired O'Connor Real Estate appraisers to do an appraisal. Now, this is the appraisal. We're a nonprofit organization. We cannot pay a penny more for this property than what it's worth, according to an appraisal, or we run the risk of losing our tax-exempt status. And so we had to hire this, do an appraisal right off the bat, and that appraisal showed, like any good appraisal, it looked at a number of different considerations in determining the value of the property. Zoning regulations, wellhead protection district, subdivision rules and regulations, wetland regulations, Massachusetts Endangered Species Act, and the sanitary code and health regulations. Is the property going to perk? Within this appraisal, all of those issues are addressed in different sections of the appraisal. Then the appraisers looked at comparable sales in the area. What were lots selling for? And they adjusted those comparable sales based upon the size, compared to the size of the lots that were likely to be created on this property, available utilities, location. This property is on pond. We don't find properties on ponds very often, so obviously that was driving a lot of the value of these lots. And they ended up coming up with 23 potential house lots.
Rich, I'm going to ask you to wrap up in 30 seconds.
Okay. The gross value of those lots, $8,345,000. $8,345,000. Then when you back out all the cost of development, real estate taxes, sales and advertising costs, legal costs, surveying and engineering costs, common driveway, return on investment. No developer's going to develop this property if they can't get a return on their investment. That's 20% they factored in. And miscellaneous other expenses. The final value that was determined by the appraisers was $5 million. That's how we got to the $5 million figure. So just wanted to make sure there wasn't any more misinformation lingering out there. Thank you very much.
Well, as you can see, we're having technical troubles. A lot of us have had that moment of panic. If you do get it back up and running, I will entertain another 2 minutes for you to run the video. I'm not volunteering to fix it. So with that, I'm going to ask, does the Finance Committee wish to speak to the article? Okay, that's a no. And does the Select Board wish to speak to the article?
Very briefly, Mr. Moderator. Before I begin, I just want to say this is great. This is democracy in action. We have the purest form of government, open town meeting, and to see this many people turn out, no matter how this vote goes, this is great, and everybody should be commended, and I thank you for turning out tonight. Just briefly, as Rich Hubbard said, Franklin Land Trust, who's done a great job. We started this in 2016. We met with the Fish and Game, we met with Conservation, Open Space, Community Preservation, Planning Board, and we all agreed that this was going to be a major project, but we were going to give it our best shot. And I think we have done a lot of hard work and we've come a long way. The Select Board is in favor of this motion because our arrangement with Franklin Land Trust, when they came to us, when they told us, look, we're short. We're short $1.7 million. Would you consider putting in another $500,000? We would like to go back to the state and other sources to see if we couldn't raise additional funds to at least come closer and then approach the landowner, because Franklin Land Trust holds the purchase and sale agreement, not the town of Southwick, and approach the landowner to see if she would accept those monies so that we could preserve this property. So that was the understanding we had with Franklin Land Trust. So we did go along with this, and we are asking you to approve this motion. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'm going to open it up to folks to raise their hand and be recognized. And I'm going to go around sections because it randomizes the process a little bit. And make sure that if there's a particular group that's setting, all together, that I'm not picking from the same category. So I'm going to start with the bleachers up here. Okay, Mr. Mason, please identify yourself, and I recognize you to either speak or ask a question, no more than 2 minutes.
Bruce Mason, 46 Lakemont Street. I live within 200 feet of the water, and this will guarantee me access to the lake. I'm 200 feet from the water, and I already had to spend thousands of dollars to fight people who want to cut me off from the water, who are private people, who in their own interests, they want lakefront property. They have through legal processes have been able to take it away from the community. And the community that I moved into in 1960 had complete access to the lake, and they lost it. We are going to lose access to North Pond if we don't pass this bill.
Anybody in the bleachers up on my right would like to be recognized? Okay, gentleman right there. Looks like a familiar
Don Consolini, Finding Hill Road, 52 years. There, 72 years in this town. You guys are forcing me out with taxes. Has this ever been discussed before we did all the work on these schools?
So you'd like somebody to answer the question, was this discussed before?
That's one thing, that's one question.
Okay.
Can I say another one too?
Sure.
Can the zoning law be changed to protect North Pond rather than buying the property? They changed the zoning law in my neighborhood.
Okay, so Mr. Consolini has two questions.
Thank you.
And I'm going to direct the first one, I guess, to the select board. Was the purchase of this property contemplated prior to the school project here?
No, Tommy, the school override Proposition 2.5, the debt exclusion, was previous to this. And let me just for clarification, the select board and the finance committee are recommending the $500,000 additional funds from community preservation. That's monies that have already been collected and are presently being retained.
Okay, and is the chair of the planning board here? Vice chair. Okay, vice chair, I'll ask you and then I'll ask town council the second question. Could this be addressed through changes in the zoning bylaws?
Marcus Phelps, 28 Depot Street. There is a possibility of changing the zone. The only option I could see, it's currently zoned R20, could be changed to agriculture and conservation, which still allows the construction of single-family homes, but it has to be done through a special permit process. So there is that opportunity, but in our long-range plan, whenever that was developed 55 years ago, this was zone R20, and that was the density that was decided at that time.
Okay, town council, wish to add anything to that in terms of...
I think Marcus did a great job, and I concur that I don't think that much could be done to change the zoning. Twofold, it could be considered spot zoning, number one, to try to change it to outlaw single-family homes based on certain uses, and there could also be an argument that it's a pre-existing use right now in the R20, and there could be certain things that could be done to make sure that that use is still allowable, even if the zoning is changed in the future.
Okay, question from the bleachers up here. Question or comment? None? Okay, please rise and get a microphone up to you. And young gentleman from the government class will get his exercise.
Elaine Boucher, 77 Rosewood Lane in Southwick. My question is, I noticed that you're talking about developing this not for homes, recreation, fishing, swimming, boating, launching, bird watching, whatever. Who is going to pay for this maintenance? Swimming, we need lifeguards, we need outside facilities for people to use. Who's going to pay for that? How much a year is that going to cost the town to maintain?
Michelle or somebody from the group here?
The land would be owned by the town of Southwick, so it would be up to the town of Southwick to decide how we want to use our land. So if we'd like to have porta potties on the land, that could be decided by us. If we wanted to have a parking lot, that could be decided and determine where the funds would come from at that point. But
From the taxpayer.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
A brief addition from
Chris Pratt, Chair of Conservation Commission, Vice Chair of Community Preservation. The real answer to that is $0 because this does not include any of those things. This is only to purchase the land and leave it in its natural state. It's not to build lifeguard stands. It's not to put porta potties in. It's not to build anything else on the property. Well, that's what it is.
So anybody from this row forward here, Cindy. Get a microphone down here.
Cindy Marshall, 45 Coast Hill Road. I have one question that I need clarified, and then I'd like to make a statement. Tonight, this 500,000, is this going toward the 61.63 acres or the 146 acres? There seems to be a discrepancy or some confusion between the 4 million price tag and the 5 million price tag for the 146 acres versus the 4 million for the 61.63. Michelle?
This North Pond land acquisition is a package deal. The total price for the 146 acre parcel is $5 million. Different funding has come in for different parcels. I know it's confusing. The 62 acres that are left are what we're looking to purchase with the $500,000 on Article 1 and the 1.2 on Article 2. State money is paid for that. If you remember that graphic that I showed, that additional piece that was purchased by the state was $100,000. They also committed to $600,000 for the conservation restriction and another $400,000 for the land grant. So they put forth $2 million towards that. So basically, again, think of it as an entire package, but different funding sources have taken care of different aspects of it. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
So we have 2.3 million already? Is that where it stands? Toward the 5 million? Okay.
It's easier to look at it at what we need to have.
Yeah, let's get a microphone to Michelle because we can't hear you back here.
It's a little bit complicated. It's easier to look at what we have left because there are those other factors at play, like the conservation restriction that costs $600,000. So it's the remaining money. We really can't portion it out to say for the 62 acres apart from the rest of the package deal. So the remaining money is what we would need to come up with. It's 1.8 million, 500,000 of money that's already been paid by our taxes, and then a bond for 1.2 from the town for tonight at least.
Just one comment here is that the Southwood Country Club was 122 acres. That sold for $15.573, $15,573 an acre. This property is, some figures are saying $34,000 an acre. The assessment for, the town assessment for the 61.63 is $761,200. They're asking, well, I was going by the 4 million, whatever. But a house that's assessed for $150,000 in this town is, according to the 761,000 assessment that the town has on that 61 acres now, is 5.25 times the cost of the 4 million, I'm sorry, I'm still going by for the 61.63 acres. So a $150,000 house that's assessed in this town, is anybody willing to pay $761,000 for that house? That's basically what we're being asked to do.
Okay,
I know that's kind of confusing.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. Somebody in this section back here, down here on the floor. Sir. I'm trying to move it around here, folks. So we're going to get around the room and then start again. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Jeff Jockman from Winfield Circle in Southwick. I've been sitting here for half an hour and all I've heard is pros. I was wondering if there's anybody on the board up there. I'm sort of a con, and I'd like to see what it's really going to cost me. I've only heard the positive. Could somebody represent me and say what the negatives are? Thank you.
Does anybody at the front table want to review cons? I don't think you, I don't see a taker up there. Perhaps some other speakers will do that. Is there somebody over in this section that would like to ask a question, make a comment? Okay, yes ma'am. Microphone coming your way.
Hi, my name is Molly Jacobs. I live at 140 Pointerville Road. A lot of the comments I didn't plan on talking, but a lot of the comments I'm hearing having to do with houses and developing this property. For me, I want this property to stay as is, so we can enjoy it as we have for many years, so that my kids sitting up there can enjoy it as many years as I have growing up on it. So as far as, we have a town beach, we don't need lifeguard stands, we don't need any of those things. As far as trying to compare it to a price of the country club that sits on a state highway, this is beautiful, pristine property.
Okay, somebody in this section that I haven't been through yet. Sir, get a microphone.
Hi, Chris Noss, 117 Berkshire Avenue. I think it'd be definitely a great idea if we vote to target the $500,000 from the CPC funds towards this project. But the additional $1.2 million, I forgot who mentioned it, but somebody in the crowd mentioned it tonight. I think it was Mr. Consolini. I mean, we've overridden 2.5 to fund the school systems. I'm old enough to remember when it came to us for the sewer systems around the lake, which I thought also was a good idea. But I'm sure there's a lot of people in this auditorium that are still paying money towards what it costs to have all that system installed. As in addition to the initial hookup, people are still paying $300–400 a year, I believe, is the annual fee for that. This lady did mention and bring up a good point. I notice also with the sewer system now, there's all these other attendant fees that go along with its servicing and operation. I don't know if that was foreseen at the time, but it's certainly line item items in the annual budget for the town. So I think the Community Preservation Act and the money that is assessed after the first $100,000 evaluation is a solid idea. And the money we raise from that, we should be able to figure out the best way to use it without coming to the taxpayer for more additional funds. So I think it's a good idea to vote for the $500,000 because it is a pretty sound project, especially for what the fund is designated for. But if there's another $1.2 million that's needed, I think we should wait until May, that Michelle said was a potential option, and try to bond it through the CPC instead of coming to us again for that additional money. We paid once, why should we pay twice?
All right, I'm going to look back to the bleachers here, somebody, yes, ma'am. Yes, we'll get a microphone up here. Well, you do.
Can't hear you.
Please.
My name is Kimberly Lamarche. I live at 27 Granville Road, and I just want to clarify that Articles 1 and 2 are totally different and mean totally different things. So I want everyone here to be clear that Article 1 is monies that have already been collected and can be appropriated to reserve open space and protect everything that's been discussed, as opposed to other projects which allow no access to anybody except the grantees. So I want you to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Hilda. Sir, you just walk right by him.
Neil DeHenke, 140 Summer Drive. I've been in this town for 38 years. 42 of them I've spent on North Pond, Middle Pond, and South Pond. In this town, I have had the education of people like Irene Mayette, Jack Scully, Chet Vinci, Woody Woodruff. These were all big names of conservation and water in this town. And I was fortunate to sit down with all of them. All of them would agree with me. Our aquifer is fragile. Every time you turn your water on, every time you have a drink of soda or good water in a restaurant, even if you live on the western part of the town and you have well water, you still benefit from good water. But it will not always be there if we don't take care of it. And one of the things they told me was the fact that roadways, septic systems, things that perk quickly. And I can tell you, Irene Mayette years ago did perk testing back there. It perks quickly. But today we let things go, we let things slide. So today, when you raise your hand, think about putting your tap water on tonight, letting these children drink clean water in their schools, because I'm going to tell you that aquifer is fragile, and it sits right under that parcel of water. That goes north, people, not south. So tonight, vote with your conscience and think about that. This money is needed. We need to make an investment for the future of this town. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody in the bleachers up here who wish to speak? Okay, gentlemen over here, I'm going to count you here.
My name's John, I'm from Lakeview, Lakeview Street. My
Hold
question,
it a little closer.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Lakeview Street, and the 24 properties that are going to be sold to be developed, what happens with those funds? Does this help subside the cost of all this? What happens with that money after that land gets developed? That's what I'd like to know.
Okay, somebody in this section, I've seen somebody trying to, this lady over here.
No answer.
Go ahead.
About an answer to no answer. Get her a mic.
Wait till the microphone.
So going to Tuesday's out, can we have a motion to vote?
Let's let this lady speak, and then I'll take the question.
I asked a question. I never got an answer. Does anyone know the answer? What happens to the land that is developed after if we do vote yes, the 24 properties that the lady was speaking about earlier? What happens to those funds once we sell off the land? Does that go towards anything? How does that process work?
So who wants to answer that question?
You're gonna lose your fresh water. So what does it matter?
Yeah, I'm all for this, but
I think there's a little confusion. There are no houses being proposed to be sold.
we're upset about the money, so this could help.
Here's your answer.
I'm sorry.
Sir, I think there's a little confusion. There are no houses being proposed.
What about what she was talking about, the 24 pieces of land that could be developed on the other parcel of land?
If we don't buy them, then
Michelle, if you want to clarify your remarks.
So there are no homes on the land
Right.
at all. It's owned by a private person and there's no homes on the land. What we're saying sold to a developer could put as many as 24 homes on the land. So we would like to purchase it, have it owned by the town so that no homes can ever be built on the land and it remains in its pristine form.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, now the lady over here that I recognized previously.
Hi, can we have a motion to vote?
You may make a motion to move the question, and I'll take your comment as seeking to do that. It requires a second, and then motion made and seconded. So now let me explain what's happening. So motion made and seconded to move the question. This will cut off debate, and we'll go to a vote. And so to move the question requires a 2/3. I hope I'm seeing some head nodding there in the back. 2/3 vote. We will do it by voice vote. So you're not voting on the motion yet. You're voting on cutting off debate on Article 1, and then going to a vote. All in favor of moving the question, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. No. This is Article 1, yes. So you have now moved the question, so we're going to take a vote. Article 1, as presented to you, deals with the $500,000 of funding from the CPC towards the purchase of the property. So if you're any question as to where we are, look at Article 1 in your warrant. It requires a majority vote for passage. Okay, so 50% plus 1. In accordance with your direction earlier in the meeting, we're going to try it by a voice vote. I'm going to remind any non-voters in the room, please refrain from saying anything. So we'll try it by a voice vote. If that's not clear to me and to everyone who's in here, then we will go to a ballot vote. So all in favor of Article 1 as presented to you, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. No. I am going to declare that a majority. As we kind of come back to order, if you have not submitted your ballot on question on Article 1, please do so at this time. Anybody who needs the ballot box to be brought to you because of a mobility impairment, please raise your hand and we will get around to you. Again, the rules say that myself, the officers, the poll workers cannot physically handle your ballot. And that's why we're being careful on that. So if anybody needs us to come around with the ballot box, please raise your hand. And while we're doing that, I'm going to explain what we're going to do. I'm going to ask everybody to return to their seats and come to order. While they're counting on Article 1, we will proceed to Article 2. So again, same process that we did previously. I'll read the article. I'll ask for a motion and second. The proponents have a brief presentation they'd like to make. They're done with the PowerPoint, and an outside speaker that they would like to be heard. And then we will open it up again and go through the same process. Now, I understand some of you are frustrated that I did not recognize you to speak, and you know, I really wish everybody could get to speak, but you know, we'd be here till midnight if we did that. I tried to be fair going around the room. I don't, you know, I'm not clairvoyant, so I don't know, other than the blue shirts, I don't know who's in favor or against. So I tried to be as random as possible and give as many people a chance, and we'll do the same thing again. So bear with us, you know, regret for those of you who really wanted to speak very badly. So with that, I'm going to declare the voting on Article 1 closed, and we're going to proceed to Article 2, and that reads as follows. Article 2, North Pond Project, additional funding, borrowing. That the town meeting vote to authorize the town of Southwick to borrow $1,200,000 through either long-term or short-term notes or bonds, the type and length to be determined by the appropriate town officials in accordance with Massachusetts law for the North Pond project funding. This borrowing shall be for the purpose of acquiring an interest in land and or in addition to preserve North Pond and to take any other action relative thereto, and that's requested by petition. I'm going to ask, is there a Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee does not recommend the town's $1.2 million, either through long-term or short-term notes or bonds. The type and length be determined by the appropriate town officials in accordance with Massachusetts law for the North Pond project funding. This borrowing shall be for the purpose of acquiring an interest in the land and or in addition to preserve North Pond and to take any other action relative thereto as requested by petition.
All right. At this time, I'm going to recognize Michelle Pratt. And do you make a motion?
The motion is to appropriate the sum of $1,200,000 for the purchase of approximately 61.63 acres, more or less, being a portion of land comprised of 2 parcels of property more fully described in 2 deeds recorded in the Hampden County Registry of Deeds in Book 20621, page 446. See also Assessor's Map 009, Lot 038, and Book 20621, page 449. See also Assessor's Map 098, Lot 83, owned by South Lawn Yard Holding Company Incorporated, and to meet this appropriation, the Treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow $1.2 million under and pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7 of the General Laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore, on such terms and conditions that they deem in the town's best interest. In addition, if deemed in the town's best interest, these funds can come from any other source of funding. Provided, however, that if additional funds are raised, received, or donated from any other source, whereby less than $1.2 million is required, then the amount to be appropriated and the amount to be authorized to borrow shall be reduced accordingly. To authorize the Select Board to acquire such interest in the land and to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary on behalf of the town to effectuate said purchase, all subject to approval of Town Council. In addition, to authorize the Select Board, if determined appropriate and necessary by them and Town Council, to grant a perpetual conservation restriction on this parcel of land, meeting the requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 184, Sections 31 to 33.
All right, is there a second? Okay, motion made and seconded, and so I am going to
Recognize the petitioners for a short statement, or if you wish to move here next week. Can we get a microphone over here for Michelle, please? One coming your way here. Okay, two coming your way.
I just need one thing. I just wanted to be clear. I think it wasn't maybe easily understood with what I had said before. This 1.2 bonding absolutely needs to be voted on tonight through the town. That has to happen tonight through the town. I just think it's important you also know that your Community Preservation Commission had the opportunity last night at their meeting to vote to appropriate the bond through them. Had they done that, you would not be facing this tax implication this evening. They had an opportunity to bond to the CPC, the money's already paid. They voted not to do that. That is a question that you should be asking, and will be further looked into. So that's an important thing for you all to know, and it should be addressed in the future. We can't do anything about that tonight, except vote yes. Vote to tell them you want the opportunity to vote. Last night, they denied it to you. You should have had the chance last night to vote to bond for them, and you don't have it. So you must vote now on whether or not you're going to raise your taxes. Don't be upset with me or petitioners that you're facing this. You should be thinking about that instead.
Now I will recognize your other speaker, and if you would introduce them, Michelle.
I'd like to introduce
And
Jerry
then we will go, from there we will go to the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and if there is a representative of the CPC that would like to speak to this, I will recognize them as well. So that will be the order, and then again, we'll open it up and go around the room. While this gentleman's coming forward, I omitted a name of one of the high school students, so Claire Hanna is here with us tonight, moving the microphone around, and our thank you to her.
Thank you. First of all, actually, I'm impressed, truly impressed. My name is Jerry Crane. I'm a past president of Citizens Restoring Congamon. I live at 308 Halliday Drive in West by God, Suffolk, the other side of the lake. I have something very personal to talk about this evening, something I've written over the past week, but I think it reflects the feelings of many people in this room. And I hope I can get through it. I was born 75 years ago in New Britain, Connecticut. So I spent most of my summers in the city. It was all right. We better school, parking lots, and things that we did. My father was a fisherman, and he discovered Congamon back in the late 1940s. So we started spending summers up here. So I got to spend more time on the lake. And trust me, Congamon was better. We rented every summer on the lake until 1954 when my parents bought the camp on Halliday Drive. So I was able to spend a lot more time on the lake, and it was better yet. Believe me, it was my little piece of heaven. In the late 60s, I got married, moved into 308, raised a family. In the mid-70s, my wife and I, Janine, who's with me tonight, discovered Citizens Restoring Congamon. We didn't know what it was all about, but we knew the lake had problems, so we got involved. We had lake cleanup days. We drug everything from used water heaters and auto parts out of the water and did some minor dredging, thanks to the AI construction company, just to help with the water flow. Then, invasive weeds. Milfoil. The lake people rallied like you wouldn't believe. We had fundraisers, everything from cookie sales, tag sales, and the pontoon boat bridge, which got us into the Guinness Book of World Records. The first treatment cost $186,000, and we still reap the benefits of that.
Jerry, I'm going to ask you to wrap up here in the next 30, 40 seconds.
Well, you just spoke up 5 minutes. So
I'm being generous.
And we still have spot treatments every year. I just have to say, we've got other issues. We've got the sand pit issue. We didn't do too well there. But the lake is under stress. It's not going to get any better unless we keep vigilant and keep on top of it. Citizens Restoring Congamon and the Lake Management Committee are fully supportive of this purchase, and we can't let this land get away. Don't use your little piece of heaven. Thank you.
Does the Finance Committee wish to speak to the question? Okay, so you made the recommendation. Would the Select Board like to speak to the issue?
I'll try to keep it brief. Let me just say that when this started in 2016, the Select Board was in favor of preserving this land and still are in favor of preserving this land. And that is why when Franklin Land Trust came to us and asked us to consider putting another $500,000 towards this project, because we've already voted $1 million towards it, we agreed to call a special town meeting so that the voters would have a chance. The petition that came in afterwards, our problem with it is because it's going to affect taxes. We work on a daily basis on the town's financial position. And this is just not good financial planning for our community. Even though we feel strongly about it and it would be a great cause, it's not good financial planning. We made a commitment a few years ago when we did the Proposition 2.5 override and the debt exclusion for our schools, that if we were going to do borrowings, we would do that as old debt rolled off, we would replace it with new debt. And the reason for that is to keep a steady tax rate so that we don't have spikes. we're a graying community, and we have people on fixed incomes. And raising taxes dramatically hurts people. And we as a community have to work together. We have several projects that have been in the pipeline for several years. One of them is the ALS for our emergency response. That is something that is going to probably, we hope, start this year. But it's a costly endeavor. And we also have already approved, the voters have already approved, the bonding of new fire apparatus. In addition to that, we recently, the voters approved a $50,000 study to look at town buildings. All our town buildings are reaching the point where we're going to have to start looking at re-roofing, paving, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. And that is going to be a very costly project that we're going to have to bond for. Another issue is the unfunded federal mandate for stormwater. Our DPW director has told us over the next 5 years it's going to cost the town of Southwick $1 million to address just the permitting process, not to do any actual work, but just doing the testing and setting the rules and regulations. This year, this past week, we learned that our regional school system is going to be looking for an increase over last year of $500,000. We work very hard, and I'm talking about the entire town and our staff, on finances. And even though we think this is a worthy project, we cannot support this article. Thank you.
Okay, is there a representative of the CPC that wishes to speak on behalf of that group? Okay. So, Mr. Horacek is also chair of the CPC.
This project was originally designated to be $1 million investment from the town, which the town made. And the group has come back to request another $500,000, which you just approved. It was a 50% increase over the original project. And now it's going to be you're going to vote on another 1.2 million, which is plus interest, which is probably going to be about 1.7. And just didn't feel, and the bulk of the committee didn't feel that we should put so much money into one project, which would preclude us at some point in time to be able to take on another project.
All right. With that, I'm going to go around the room again as random as I can, section by section. I'm going to ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. You've done a great job tonight, folks, with keeping your comments brief. That makes it certainly much easier for me and respects the rights of your fellow citizens. So I'm going to start this time in the back of the section on my left. Is there anybody in the back half? Young lady, just raise your hand. You must have a magnetic personality.
Good?
Much better.
Thank you. Christina Proietti, Hillside Road. I apologize if this question is kind of a beginner question because I'm newer to this subject and I'm not on Facebook, so I don't have a lot of information. But my question would be if Article 1 does pass, but Article 2 doesn't, what's the outcome? What happens then? Thank you.
Okay, so somebody on the stage want to address what happens if Article 1 passes, Article 2 fails? Or petitioners? Okay, I'm going to ask town council first, and then Michelle, I'll let you give the wrap up on it.
If Article 2 doesn't pass and the sale is unable to go forward, then any appropriation for the purchase of the property would not go forward and would be brought back into the CPA would be rescinded.
And now Michelle. Can we get a microphone up there for her?
I actually am going to defer to Franklin Land for an answer on that question, please.
If we are coming up 1.2 million short, and if the landowner is not willing to sell the property for 1.2 million less than the appraised $5 million, the project ends there. We terminate the option agreement with her, and we turn back any monies that we collected from folks who asked that money to be held in escrow, and any money that's left over after that would be put into a fund to do other work in this town. But my guess is that we've spoken with the landowner on numerous occasions, and we haven't been the only ones who have spoken with the landowner. She's made it very clear she is not interested in the bargain sale. She believes already that she's selling it for less than what she's been told in the past it's worth. So that's where the project ends. Be unfortunate with all the work that's been put in and all the support, but that's it.
Okay, somebody in the back section here, sir. Right behind you. Indian Motor.
Mike Mack. Just an observation. I'd just like to make an observation that we're approaching 250-year anniversary in Southwick, is that correct? So citizens along the way appropriated money to acquire land for schools, buildings, etc. Maybe some of them didn't know what they were going to do with the land, but they knew the land was important. And if I'm understanding, this is the last piece of lake available. Half the lake was lost when Suffield, after the Civil War. I got my history right. Half of it went to Suffield, correct?
We'll have a class for you on that later on.
So, this is a one-time opportunity. So citizens 100 years from now are going, we had this chance. So I just ask that you consider that when you vote.
Thank you.
Hi, Tracy Dabrowski, One Tree Top Lane, Southwick. My question is, I agree with a lot of people here. I think it's
Tracy, a little closer to it.
I think it's an awesome project. Some of us don't understand all the financials. Can someone explain to me, one, the difference if the town bonds it out versus the CPC? You say that the taxes don't come from us, it's differently, it's collected differently through the CPC. So if you can explain that, because if it doesn't go through tonight, or does go through, but we can come to the main meeting and request the CPC, bond it through them, how does it help their taxes? And two, can we earmark future CPC money to offset the taxes in the future and the interest on the bond if the town votes for it for 1.2? That may help the people that are worried. It may help the selectmen in regards to finding ways to afford it. Can we earmark future CPC funds to offset the bonding and the interest?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask Council Boyle, I think you need to, briefly review how CPC works.
I don't know if I want to go into all that detail, Jim.
Detail, but the overall concept, and then how the bonding would work, and how the $2 million would relate. That's what the question is.
Sure, and I think it'll probably be easier to start with the second question rather than the first, Tracy, because once the town votes to appropriate town funds that are not CPC funds cannot be used to supplement them in the future. So once a general obligation borrowing is approved, you can't use CPC funds to offset it. Unfortunately, that's the way the statute's written. The way that the statute is written as well, and what the purpose of CPC is there is a certain percentage of your taxes that are used and earmarked towards certain projects that are approved and be able to be funded through the CPA, the CPA Act. The CPC committee is the guardian, if you will, the recommending body that allows certain projects and funding for certain projects to be brought forth to the town meeting, the legislative body within the town of Southwick, in order to determine whether or not it wants to approve those funds for use for a particular project. In this particular case, there was a request for the CPC to authorize borrowing and bonding through future revenues of the CPA. The committee did not vote to bring that recommendation to the town. So as a result, that's not before the town today and cannot be voted on. The only way that CPC funds can be voted on by this legislative body is if a recommendation is made by the CPC to bring it forth to this body. Again, that's the way the statute's written, and there's nothing that this body can do without a recommendation from the CPC.
Satisfied with the answer, Tracy? Okay, I'll give you a follow-up. Sure.
Mr. Horacek, you're on CPC. Are there any major projects that you will want to withhold this money for, that you're saying there may be other projects you want to utilize this money for? Are there some set that you're looking to do? And two, if you're taking our tax money for CPC and this is what we want to use it on and we have a majority vote, I hope you hear it loud and clear today. You represent our people.
I'm going to try to get other people through, so
Tracy, there are no projects that are on the docket presently. Wow. They come up all the time.
Come to order, please, and let him finish the answer. Why did you reject us? No. Please come to order.
To protect future projects. I'm sorry, I don't think, was there another question?
The follow-up question was what other major projects are anticipated?
Right, I said there are no other projects on the docket right now, but they come up all the time.
Okay, all right. Now up here, there's a lady up here, red, I'm sorry, blue shirt.
Hi, Beth Thomas, 45 Miller Road. I have been accused of pushing my agenda. It is absolutely true. And I have tried to be as transparent about it as possible. If this becomes a housing development, open space and wildlife habitat will disappear forever. More pollutants into our lake and possible contamination of our drinking water. The big money makers will be the developers, the bankers, the real estate brokers, not the town, not the current taxpayers, and certainly not our children. If it stays pristine, the land will belong to our grandchildren and their grandchildren forever. We will lose between $14,000 and $20,000 in tax revenue if it becomes protected land. It will cost us tax dollars to purchase it. Uncontaminated drinking water will be worth millions, and that's where the power is. There are pros and cons to each of these proposals, but what is the value of bequeathing acreage to future generations? Let's leave them something worth having forever. In the next few decades, we will see the results of whatever decision is rendered this evening, and I hope that we do not regret our votes forever.
Thank you.
Patrick Line with Shag Park. Okay, you're going to raise all this money, for the taxpayers. What about the fire department? We want the full-time department. What's that going to cost us next down the road? And don't say, it's everybody talking about it. I mean, before you're done, you're going to tax everybody right out of here.
So I'm going to direct that question back to the front table. What are the implications in terms of other spending priorities? I know that's been addressed, but I think the gentleman's asking that it be addressed again.
If the question is about the fire department, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if Chief Anderson is still here. He is. He would probably be better to answer ALS and the cost of that. It's a 3-year process that we're going to be beginning. And Chief, correct me if I get off base. It's a 3-year project. Eventually, with ALS, you have to have 7-day, 24-hour-a-day coverage. So that is going to be a tremendous cost. Chief, if you want to add.
Chief, would you go ahead and add on as appropriate, please?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a dollar you can figure. We're in the process of going through that budget process right now. And depending on what happens on this and other things and the other budget processes, some of the department heads haven't even presented their budgets yet. So the front table at some point makes the decisions on priorities. So if you're, our plan is to put forward 2 people so that we can start half of the coverage. And it's a 3-year plan to roll it out. I don't have the dollar amount for you. I'd gladly, address it at some other point. But again, it's in the budget debate process at this point.
But it is going to be the next project, the fire department.
It's a next project for us, yes, correct.
We're going to spend all this money for land to protect the animals and stuff. And then we got to come up with all this money to pay taxes for a full-time fire department.
So, saying a full-time department, it's still going to be a combination department. It'll have some full-time people that cover 70% of our calls during the day. And the rest will still be called for. So it's not going to be 100%, a full-time fire department. As far as one thing versus another, that's what this democratic process is about. So that's why everybody's here for their whatever.
Right, but wouldn't it be better to put this on the back burner and plan on the full-time department?
This is a democratic process, madam.
Please answer, Chief, and then I'm going to ask you to yield the floor.
I mean, it's the process, I don't...
They're worried about the aquifer. What about the aquifer on the end of Red Oak Drive there, that's right by the well that they built?
All right, sir, your time is up, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to go to this section over here, which I haven't, again, somebody in this section have a question or a comment. And now I'm going to come to this section, sir, you've already spoken to this gentleman over here.
This is a different issue.
Well, I'm trying to spread it around, so I don't think this gentleman's had a chance yet.
Hi there, Brett Anderson, 152 South Vineyard Road. I just want to say, yes, this is a forever decision, and it's a forever decision on both sides. If you decide not to do this, it will never happen. It will always be, we will rescind from the availability of public property to private property. And your aquifers will be challenged, and you will never be able to make this decision again. I moved to Southwick because we have 1 acre of land per person. I love my neighbors. I don't necessarily want to have breakfast with them. You need to realize, it has been explained what this is going to cost you. The cost is rather paltry, and one thing you must remember, this is a separate issue from the fire department, which we love, the police department. You need to focus on one issue tonight. And you will not get a chance to do that again. And if you leave it, I know you guys do a good job, but if you leave it to the CPC, it dies right there. Don't be foolish.
My name's Stefan. I'm from 304 South Vineyard. We're neighbors. I just want to say, for the less than a cup of coffee a month, we could save this piece of land. It's the last piece of land that we have. It's less than a cup of coffee a month. It's peanuts. We should just do it.
concerned about the taxes going up. People are concerned about the taxes going up. I'm Christine Narrow, 80 South Long Yard. If our aqueducts are damaged and we need to find an alternative water source, isn't that going to cost way more than $1.2 million that we will not have a choice to vote on? This will be necessary. Is that correct? If somebody confirm that officially?
Is there anybody here that would like to answer a question regarding cost of buying money cost of buying water elsewhere? Is that the question?
It's on an aqueduct, so if our aqueduct is damaged and we're forced to go somewhere else to get our water source, is that going to be a higher expense for our taxpayers overall?
Is there anybody here from the Water Commission? I'm going to recognize our DPW head to respond to that question.
Randy Brown, 95 Fred Jackson Road, DPW Director. So yes, if you're to develop a new well site at a new property, I would expect it'd be several $1 million to develop that well.
That's right.
That would include the land acquisition cost, the cost of the pump station, the water main, whole 9 yards, design, permitting, yes.
Well, just wait for the mic and repeat the follow-up, and then I'm going to move on.
So can you give us a comparison of an overall guesstimate compared to the 1.2 that we're voting on this evening?
There's a lot of variables in play, but I would assume between $1 to $2 million.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Okay. I just want some clarification. Quick clarification, sir, but not 2 minutes. So, please rise and name and address.
Chris Ross, 117 Berkshire. Michelle, I just wondered if you could clarify for us. I believe you said at the beginning of the meeting, if we didn't vote to bond the money through the town tonight, we would have another opportunity to vote to bond through the CPC.
Let me finish the question and Michelle will answer it.
I thought you said that we would have that second bite at the end.
Sorry, Chris, that's why I tried to clarify that I misspoke. We can't compel the CPC to do anything like that, so this vote does have to be taken tonight to bond through the town. And just to be very clear with you, in case anybody has been here at a long meeting, has been listening, our Finance Committee Chair, who is against this project, is our CPC Chair.
At this time, I'm going to announce the vote on question on Article 1, and the vote was 478 yes, 88 no. Lady with the red hair over here.
Sorry, Denise Durazio, 33 Miller Road. I just have a question for the board of guests. When it comes to setting money aside, you're setting aside money for schools, you set aside money for city road, the fire department, police department, all these things are important. Water is just as important. And this land has brought about different people discussing it as just land. It's not just about a piece of property. It's about what that property does to the water and what that water does to the people. We bought land to be around lakes. We want to enjoy lakes. Like that other gentleman said, we want to enjoy swimming in the lake in the summer. We want to have these wonderful times. If we can't swim because the water's too dangerous to swim in, what's the point? Who's going to fix it then? And what are you going to be drinking?
All right.
Jason Kuchar, 29 South Long Yard. I make a motion to move it to a vote.
Motion made and seconded to move the question on Article 2. And so, again, same procedure as we went through before. We're gonna do a voice vote on moving the question. And based on that, if I determine it's a 2/3 vote, then we will proceed to voting, and we will do it by ballot. We're prepared to do it. And I'll explain that again, and I'll try to explain a little bit better this time than I did the last time, so we can get through that okay. All in favor of moving the question on Article 2, please say aye. And opposed, say no. I'm going to determine that that was a majority, a 2/3 majority vote to move the question. So again, this time you, and you should by process of elimination only have a white ballot left. And so the first instruction is please stay seated until we call you up here, because we can make this a lot easier if we do it in an orderly fashion than kind of a rush to the polling station. So please remain seated. We will try to call you up to the polling stations. Again, process, show your hand stamp, put the ballot in the box, keep rolling. I will tell you, because I'm sure a number of you are thinking, do I have to stay here? And there's no further business on the agenda tonight. So as soon as we will remain in session until we have those votes counted, but there's no other articles to be voted upon, so you may make your own decision. I'm not inviting you to leave, but I know some of you are going to do it. So, can I get a point of order? Point of order. Point of order, yes. No, we're doing a ballot vote here. And by the way, this requires a 2/3 vote. And so, unless you'd like to make a motion to try to do it by voice, but I think you know how that's going to go. So let's first of all bring up those voters at the head table, any of the police officers, fire officers, anybody that's got an official responsibility here tonight and is a registered voter. Please submit your, we're going to have the ballot box come to them. And point of order again, yes? We will not bring it up for reconsider, folks. Okay. So that the bleachers section only, back here in this corner, please go up and submit your ballots. And this bleacher section over here, go ahead and submit your ballots.
I'm Dennis. I work for the town conservation. You live in town too? Oh, I've been here for 20 years. Free.
I'm going to ask everybody to sit down and come to order, please. Question 2, or Article 2, there are 404 yes, 100 no. That's a 2/3 majority. Article 2 is adopted. At this time, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Thank you.